This is part 2 of my massive 100 Manhwa tier list for 2026. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, make sure to click the link right here and check that out first. Today, we are finishing the list by ranking the next 50 titles. Just like last time, we are working our way from the bottom to the top. We will start at the dreaded D tier for the absolute skips, work through the averages and solid binges, and end at the legendary S tier. All right, let's jump into the bottom and work our way up, starting off at the very bottom with D tier. These are the ones where I just felt no love. The art was mid, or the execution completely failed the premise. Limit-breaking genius mage. I absolutely love magic stories and magic school settings, so I was really hopeful for this one. Unfortunately, it suffers from incredibly mid-lifeless art, and the execution just isn't there. Youngest scion of mages. Another mage story that disappointed me. The main character gets brought into the pages of a book as a side character, but right from the cover art, you can tell something feels deformed and off. It just isn't great. Sword-devouring Swordmaster. We are only about 12 chapters into this one at the time of making this video, but it is already showing very little hope. It lands right here with the other skippable devouring clones. 3 titles that just didn't hit the mark. Let's move up to something a bit more passable. C tier is for the series that aren't horribly broken, but they're either losing their momentum, dragging their feet, or failing to show true originality. Lightning Degree. I know this might be my first truly controversial take of the day, because some people really love this manhwa. But for me, it doesn't do anything novel or new. The master-student dynamic is just okay. Manager Kim. This breaks my heart. I absolutely loved the first 30 to 40 chapters. It's basically the movie Taken. A meek dad turns out to be a brutal secret agent rescuing his daughter. The action is incredible, but it has completely outstayed its welcome. It should have been a short, finished story. Cleric of Decay. The MC gets pulled into a game where he intentionally plays on hard mode with a weak class. I enjoy this one more than I probably should, but it's just not as good as the higher tiers. Martial Peak. A massive Chinese manhwa with thousands of chapters. It's great if you want endless, easy-to-digest power scaling, but it spends 0 time on world building. Plus, the MC builds a harem, and as soon as a story introduces a harem, I am usually out. The Lord's coins aren't decreasing. I loved the economic/commerce revenge concept when it first dropped, but the popularity fell off hard, translators dropped it, and shockingly, the art actually got worse over time. The player returned 10,000 years later. The MC returns to Earth after spending 10,000 years in hell. He's built to be this edgy anti-hero full of desires, but I just didn't find him engaging. Genius Archer Streaming. Archery isn't a super common weapon, which I appreciate, but the comedy feels like it's overexerting itself and trying too hard to hit. Echoes of the Reverse Planet. Only about 20 chapters in. The world setup is incredibly gruesome and bloody, but the character art is too clean. There is no life behind the eyes, making them look fake and unsettling. Heavenly Inquisition Sword. Great setup about an abused kid learning martial arts in a locked room and escaping with a band of criminals, but it feels like it was written by a teenager. The beats aren't engaging, the art gets deformed, and the characters act way too childish. A massive fall-off. Dragon-devouring mage, from the same studio as town-swallowing magician, but it's just a heavily watered-down version that doesn't deserve more than a C. Villain to Kill. I know some people rank this much higher, but the premise didn't overwhelm me. The art is just okay, and the fights never truly blew me away. B tier is your comfort food. These are solid stories that you might drop for a few months, pile up 40 chapters, and absolutely devour while traveling or relaxing on a weekend. Revenge of the Iron-Blooded Swordhound. Some of my personal friends put this in A tier, but it hasn't completely blown me away. I dislike how much time the MC spends as a young child, but the art is on point and the fights are pretty good. Solidly mid-B. Trash of the Count's Family. The character dynamics are fun and the art is genuinely beautiful. However, I've slowly lost my personal excitement for the pacing, so it sits comfortably here. Jungle Juice. People really sleep on this one. The insect-human concepts are quirky, and it feels very much like a classic shonen manga. It's a great read. though I've dropped and binged it 4 times now. The Dark Magician transmigrates. After 66,666 years, really fun hero/anti-hero dynamic with the MC pulling in familiars and being a little cruel. It's fantastic for the first mile of chapters, though reading it week to week loses some charm. The regressed son of a duke is an assassin, a standard reincarnation story, but playing with assassin skill sets rather than a typical knight gives it a nice touch of originality and fun. Lone Necromancer, released during the massive post-solo leveling necromancy craze, but this is a very good version of it with a unique art style and solid storytelling. Absolute Reign, set in a fallen murim world with a principled protagonist who actually has good values and goes through real hardship. The fights are very cool. Skeleton soldier couldn't protect the dungeon. I didn't like this at first because having a literal skeleton as the MC is jarring. But the storytelling, the relationships, and the comedy are surprisingly great. God Game, a very clever premise created by Brandon Chen. Characters are brought into a world with no memories and must fight to the death. The combat choreography and momentum are excellent. Academy's undercover professor, I love school settings, and this one has some great sneaking, undercover operations, and mysteries, even if the storytelling isn't perfect. The player hides his past. A grown-up salaryman gets pulled into a game world where he is forced to embody the cringy, overly designed Chunabu protagonist he created when he was 12 years old. The personality quirks make this incredibly fun. Return of the War God. A ridiculously powerful main character gets unsealed after 1,000 years and just wants peace. He encounters a little girl, becomes a father figure, and builds an ensemble of friends. It's a fantastic, heartwarming palate cleanser with occasional hilarious beatdowns. Childhood Friend of the Zenith, a very sweet, genuine second chance reincarnation story. The storytelling isn't the most explosive, but it's a very worthwhile read. The tutorial is too hard. It has gotten a bit too long for my personal liking, but it has maintained a very solid, stable story throughout its run. Boundless Necromancer. This used to be a locked A tier for me during its first 40 chapters because of how it handled tower mechanics. But man, the storytelling went off the deep end, and the MC's design change made him look incredibly boring. Infinite Mage. This was one of my absolute favorites for a long time, but the recent summer trip story arc was so slow and boring that it completely ruined the pacing of the series. I'm putting it at the bottom of B with hopes it recovers. Now we're getting into the elite tier. These are phenomenal series that are consistently delivering high-quality art, great pacing, and engaging characters. Swordmaster's youngest son, moving this straight to the top of A tier where it belongs. It delivers engaging arcs, phenomenal fights, and great character scaling. It's a perfect binge read that has stayed incredibly consistent. Damn Reincarnation. As I said, this world building is S tier quality, keeping it in A tier solely because of the hiatus, but it's an absolute must-read. Solo max level newbie, phenomenal dynamic art, and great team building mechanics. It carves out its own distinct tower climbing space and executes it flawlessly. Overgeared, near the top of A tier. It balances the virtual game world with real-world consequences beautifully, and the main character has genuine depth, flaws, and insecurities. The World After the End. The main character is incredibly one-note, but the sheer scale of the world building and the mind-blowing art style completely force this into the high A tier. Legend of an Asura, the Poison Dragon. If you love Reaper of the Drifting Moon, you will love this. The MC goes through literal torture and hell to pursue a clear, driven story of revenge. It handles trauma and motivation beautifully. Leveling with the gods. The way it delivers its narrative could be slightly more engaging, but the unique, crisp art style and the overall plot make it an easy A tier for 90% of its run. The Player That Can't Level Up. This surprised me. It started off looking generic, but the progression turned out to be amazing. I only wish it had a top-tier art style to match how good the story actually is. God of Blackfield, a legendary military reincarnation story. A badass soldier gets betrayed, reincarnates, and delivers absolute justice. The action is packed, and the story expands seamlessly every arc. Mercenary Enrollment, the classic stoic high school badass trying to protect his grandfather and sister while recovering the humanity he lost as a child mercenary. It puts just enough genuine family warmth between the action beats to completely hook you. Infinite leveling in Murim, one of the best murim manhwa ever made. The MC is a low-level captain sent to die who returns to the past to fix a corrupt system. As he changes the past, the world dynamically alters around him. The rivalries and world vastness are incredible. Mukyang, Dark Lady, a follow-up to the original Mukyang. It has a uniquely beautiful, old-school drawn aesthetic that is incredibly rare to find nowadays. It is distinct, high-quality fantasy. I obtained a mythic item. I wrote this off early on, but by the end of Season 1, I realized how wrong I was. The character dynamics are fantastic, and it has stayed thoroughly enjoyable for its entire duration. The 100th regression of the max level player, one of the absolute best regression stories of the past couple of years. The hiatuses have been rough, but the execution of his 100th attempt to save the world is brilliant. S tier, the cream of the crop. These are the titles carried by brilliant storytelling, legendary longevity, or characters that define the entire medium. Tower of God. This is officially the One Piece of Manhwa. It has been running for over a decade, and it is still incredible. The sheer vastness of the warring factions, the incredibly unique game mechanics on every single floor, and the quirky power sets make it a legendary masterpiece you have to respect. Lookism. Korean media can sometimes overdo bullying stories, but Lookism completely breaks the mold. It has evolved into a breathtaking peak action martial arts masterpiece with incredible choreography and a phenomenal animated Netflix adaptation. It easily claims its S-tier crown. And that wraps up our massive 100 Manhwa tier list for 2026. We have gone from the absolute bottom all the way up to the legendary masterpieces of the medium. If you're looking for your next absolute priority reads from today's video, make sure to pick up Tower of God and Lookism immediately. Next up on the channel, I'm putting together an all-inclusive tier list focusing entirely on finished manhwa that wrapped up over the last 3 years, so keep an eye out for that. Do you agree with where I placed Manager Kim or Lightning Degree? Did I disrespect your favorite series, or did I get these S tiers exactly right? Drop your personal rankings in the comments below. Hit that like button if this video helped you find something new to read. Subscribe so you don't miss the next ride, and I will see you all very soon. Take care, everyone.